Alright, hello everybody. My name is Jacob, Arteria's product specialist. Welcome to another Thursday afternoon with Arteria TV. Especially for you, we are going live today to explore one of our newest products called Keystep 37. This one is another addition to Keystep family. For all of those of you who know the Keystep family, the first Keystep that came a few years ago was a really big hit, and it swept across the market like craziness. Became one of the most popular controllers and sequencers thanks to its super small size, very expressive keyboard, and a lot of great connectivity at the back. A few months later, we have released Keystep Pro that you probably already know about. And now, perhaps it is time to go beyond our current setup and explore Keystep 37. So this one is something that arrives as the extension of the original Keystep with more keys and super advanced chord mode that we will discover during this live workshop. The plan is to spend around 45 to 60 minutes together and show you all the best features of the Keystep 37, as well as to talk a little bit with each other. We will have a Q&A at the end, so my friends are currently looking at the chat to pick up some questions from all of you, and if you have some cool questions, if you will feel like I didn't cover everything or didn't mention all of the stuff that you are interested in, you can easily send a comment and they will pick it up and send it over to me. So before we start, let me just show you the setup, what is going on here. The Keystep 37 as a controller, MIDI controller and sequencer is controlling, as a sequencer it's controlling Microfreak, which is on my right side. And also I am controlling Pigments and another polyphonic analog synthesizer with more voices, because the sequencer is obviously polyphonic, so we can have 8 notes per step, and we will take advantage of that. We are going to build some chords, some lush, long melodies, as well as the mono ones. So the Microfreak is the sound number 1. As you can see, I also control some of its parameters with those knobs, which I'm going to cover later on. And the polyphonic sound is this sound. So as I mentioned, I am using 2 different instruments on that channel, so I'm stacking 2 polyphonic instruments on this channel. So there is 16 channels that you can use. The numbers are written here. You can access all these channels. I don't know if you can see the top camera. Yes, now you can see the top camera. So the MIDI channels are available from here, so you can pick any of the channels that you're interested in. To access it, simply press Shift and then press the note that is below the number that you're interested in. So here we have this little nice keys and pad sound. As you probably noticed when I play the keys very lightly, it's just a key sound, but if I press it for a longer time, then it becomes a nice pad sound. So that's a pretty nice way of using sequencers with stacked instruments on one channel. And then you have a lot of different type of functions that are marked in blue over the keyboard. So you can determine the gate length, the swing, you can determine whether the sequence is in mono or poly, and you can also access various scales, which I'm going to cover everything later on. For now, what you need to know for sure is that other than in the original Keystep, the Keystep 37 gives you nice LEDs that indicate what note you're currently playing. So if I play if I play any of the notes, you can hear and see that the notes are being shown on the little LEDs. And what's really cool is that they change colors depending on what mode you're in. So the sequencer basically allows you to play back the sequence and play on top of that sequence as well, and then you have different types of colors. So let me show you quickly how to do it now. Maybe is this sound? Yeah. Just activate keyboard play. You can see that the color of the playback notes is different. It's kind of bluish, and then the color of the notes that I play in real time is kind of green. So that's how you can set it up, but I'm going to talk about it later on. First of all, let me cover the features and all the basics that are built in here. So at the back, I don't know if we can do this because of my cables. We'll risk it for you guys to see. I know it's upside down, but you have to trust me. So there is a power switch, which is on the right side of the channel. There is a power input, 12 volts, 1.5 amps. There is also a USB input, and the cable comes with it. There is a sustain pedal, there is a MIDI in and out, full size, there is a sync in and out, there is a CV output for modulation, gate and pitch, there is a clock selector, and that's pretty much it. So that's no different than the Keystep, the original one, with the exception of the cable and the switch, which is pretty handy. Okay, so coming back here, I hope that you can see the whole instrument. So to start from the sequencer and arpeggiator part, because it's a sequencer, but it's also an arpeggiator that's built inside of here. So all right, so okay, I think that the cable was broken. Quick reset and it all should be fine. Yes. Okay, all works perfectly. So the sequencer. The way to access the sequencer is to set this switch to the sequencer name, that's in the white font, and then you have access to 8 sequence slots. So in Keystep 37 you can program 8 different patterns. Those patterns then can be exported to MIDI control center, and then you can store them there, save them up, send them to your friends, send them to another Keystep, whatever you like, and replace them with new ones that you are going to program with Keystep 37. So there is 8 of them. You can just pick one that you would like to fill. Let's say maybe sequence number 6. Let's pick the key sound for this sequence. So there are 2 ways to program the sequences in Keystep 37. One of those is step recording and one of those is real-time recording. So to work in the step recording, all you have to do is to press record in the transport section, and then the step counter on the screen will show you how many steps you are already filling. So let's say step number 1, it's going to be a chord like this, and then maybe I want to have a rest, and this chord might be longer. All right, let's see. So that's how easy it is to program your sequences. This is a 16-step sequence that I have just programmed in a step recording mode. So again, you press record and then you program your note like that. So it sounds like this. Of course, there is a tempo and time division manipulation here that you can do. So I am at the moment set to fourth time division, fourths. So therefore the sequence is played back in that division, but you know, we can do eighths. Or even 16ths. Alright, so I get carried away and I couldn't stop myself but play on top of that over the sequence, because that's very inviting into the process. It sort of soaks you inside of the process of making music and enjoying it. But if I already did it, let me show you how you can do it as well. So you have the sequence that's recorded and you can play it back, and you can do two things with the shift combination. You can either set it to transpose the sequence by key. So now if the shift is working with the octave minus and transpose function, I'm going to be able to transpose it. And sometimes you might think that setting transpose is only one in a time. So you set it and then you leave it. But actually, it's a nice way to play your melodies like that. And another function is the keyboard play. So to access it, to be able to play on top of the keyboard, the sequence, just press Shift, hold it, and then press keyboard play. I'm gonna go back and set the transposition to this note, and then I will set the keyboard play on and play on top of the sequence. Alright, so that was very lush, very nice. Again, I used the encoders to change the behavior of the sound. I will cover those later, I promise. So the one way of doing programming the sequences is by the step recording mode. One thing that you should know is how to erase the sequences that you don't like, or the steps within the sequence that you might feel are not really, up to the quality of your productions or your taste. So if you have a sequence like this, and then let's say you would like to erase not all of the steps, but just some of the steps. For example, the last steps, to shorten it. All you have to do is to press record to enter the step recording mode, press Shift, and then click this little button that has a clear last written above it. So whenever I press this button, you see on the screen that the amount of steps is decreasing. So now I have 13 steps, now I have 12 steps. So we can listen to the new sequence. So I can, delete even more steps to have just 3 steps. And now I'm in the Philip Glass type of situation, and I can use the sequence, the keyboard play, to play above the sequence. Alright, so that's one of the ways to erase the steps. So again, enter the step recording mode and erase the steps. However, sometimes you would like to be able to erase the whole sequence as well. To do that, you have to, again, enable the step recording mode and then press record again, and then set a sequence length, which at the same time will erase the previous sequence. So this brings us to another topic, which is setting a sequence length in advance, so prior to the recording. If you would like to start a new recording after the previous one, you have to remember that the previous sequence length will apply to the new one. So to be able to get away from this and set your new sequence length in prior to recording, again, enable the step recording mode, press it again, and then set it to 16, for example. You can multiply that and go beyond. You can go up to 64 steps. And again, you can erase it in that way. So that's how you can erase steps step by step and by the whole sequence. And now let's see how we can record in real time. So to do that, I already set my sequence to 16 steps, so the sequencer will loop after 16 steps. So let me just give myself a little clock here, maybe a little drum beat to get me going. And now press record and then it's going to loop after 16 steps. Actually, let's start again and set a 64-step sequence to not be limited to just 1 bar, but to have 4 bars available at our disposal. So once again, I will count again 4 bars and then record after that. So that's pretty easy and very straightforward, and it's a lot of fun, I promise you. It's very easy, very straightforward. It's not super hard to produce some sequences and chords and various notes without the visual indication, and that's just very easy to do with this machine. One amazing thing that I haven't mentioned before is that the keyboard play option doesn't only apply to the same sound, but it can also apply to a different MIDI channel, meaning different sound. This means that if I have a sequence like this, I can then change the MIDI channel by doing a combination of buttons, which is Shift, keyboard play, and then pressing channel number 3 where Microfreak is. And now this enabled me to play Microfreak on the keyboard on top of the sequence that is played back by the two polyphonic instruments. So that's pretty cool, very versatile, and as you can see, even though it's just, on paper it looks like one sequence lane for just one melody that you can fill in the sequencer, but the playing capabilities and programming capabilities go beyond this technical feature description. You can really manipulate it in a way that it will give you a lot of freedom in playing various instruments. Okay, so that's how the sequencer works. Let's try to explore the arpeggiator now very quickly. To use the arpeggiator, you just simply set this little switch to ARP. Let me lower those little effects here. And well, in a classical way, arpeggiator, the way it works is that you just press play and triggers a note. So, in a very fast manner, I managed to produce this sequence that it's kind of cool. And that's because the arpeggiator is very flexible and straightforward and easygoing. So you have 8 different patterns to choose from. So the first one that was playing right now is the up, which means that the notes are progressing in the higher order, so from the lowest to the highest. You can also see it on the little LEDs, right? If you would like to use the down mode, which goes from the lowest to the highest, just switch it to down. So I had the hold option on, which means that I could easily just keep the arpeggio going with freeing my hands to be able to do some other stuff. So there is a lot of patterns inclusive as well, which might be interesting. Exclusive. Random, obviously. And also walk, which is inspired by, a state of walking in a, let's say, not sober space, not sober state. And it works in that way. And last two are pattern and order. So pretty straightforward and easygoing, yet flexible and kind of rich in variety of tones and different rhythms that you can really produce with that. I didn't mention that you can also go beyond You can go beyond the current time division, which is 16th note, so it's 30-second notes. You also have triplets, of course. So 4ths, 8ths, 16ths, and 30 seconds. Last thing in here that you need to know about is the octave range, because on this part you're not able to widen the octave range of the arpeggiator. However, you can do it by the combination of shift and octave plus or minus. So I'm going to trigger an arpeggio and then expand the range up and down so you can see how it sounds. So again, let me go like this. And now shift octave. So a lot of variety, a lot of cool movements and rhythm changes are possible here. So that's basically it for the arpeggiator. One last thing that you need to know about as well is the gate and swing options that I didn't mention in the sequencer. So let me quickly go back to the sequencer, trigger a sequence, maybe let's go for Microfreak. So to be able to change the gate length or the swing, you need to press shift and then pick one of the options. So it can be either 10 or 90%. And in terms of swing, it's easy as well. Just press play, press shift, and then so that's how it works in the sequencer mode, and in the arpeggio mode, easy as well. So now the swing is set to 57. And then it goes to 75. Alright, let's go back to the sequencer and sequence number 1 and show you how to change the sequence type from mono to polyphonic, because that's quite important as well and makes the Keystep 37 a bit different from the previous Keystep. So now I have a polyphonic sequence. And I can easily change it to mono just by pressing the mono button with the shift. So now it's mono, right? Let me change the sound to the Microfreak. Alright, so this is the monophonic sequence. And then I can make it polyphonic simply by pressing shift and mono button. So that's a very cool way to go back and forth between the monophonic and polyphonic mode, and you can also set it prior to the recording into the sequencer. So you can always go from the polyphonic to monophonic, but if you will record in mono, changing to poly will not produce additional notes because they are not there. All right, cool. I think that's it for the sequencer and arpeggiator. And by doing so, we are moving forward to the very cool new advanced chord mode / CC bank functionality that is built in here. So as you can see, this very cool black strip consists of the little display that shows you the tempo. So if I change the rate, you can see the tempo that we are in. And then you also have these 4 cool, not fully rotary encoders or potentiometers that will allow you to manipulate the chord mode, the chord that you will build in the chord mode, as well as control various CC parameters. So quickly about the CC parameters, there are 4 banks to use. So if you would like to switch between banks, you can go between the first and the 4th one by pressing Shift and clicking the chord button. So in my Microfreak sound, I am controlling 4 parameters from Microfreak, and these are the parameters that build the cycling envelope. So it's a rise time, it's fall and shape, hold and sustain, and amount. So if I play the sequence and manipulate those, you'll see what type of difference it will bring to the sound. So let's check it out. So outside of being amazing sequencer, now it turns out that it becomes a very handy and cool MIDI controller as well, and that makes it just a bit more much more sort of fulfilling, because you can not only control the rhythms and sequences, but you can also control the way that the sound behaves over time, and this makes it a very interesting and cool device to play live, obviously, and play in your studio and recording the changes in real time, and that just makes it super cool. So you have 4 banks of those. So in my bank number 1 on this channel, because you can also apply various MIDI channels to those parameters. So bank number 1, as I said, bank number 1 controls the cycling envelope, and bank number 2 controls the send effect amounts in my DAW in Ableton. And by the way, I have our Arterias FX Collection plate reverb and tape echo on those channels, and it just makes it sound very cool. So that's in a short way short description of how you can use those cool CC parameters to control your synthesizer and the effects in Ableton or in any other device that has MIDI input and can receive MIDI messages. So that's one of the things. That's one thing that this black strip consists of. Another thing is the chord mode. So let's go into the chord mode. So what does the chord mode mean and does? Basically, it allows you to play chords with just one finger, and quickly show you how to do that, I will program a chord, and I can do it by just pressing the chord button and then programming a chord. So I have a C major chord. And that's pretty cool, but that's how usually a chord mode works. However, with Keystep 37, you can manipulate the way the chord mode works and the way that the program chord is played back. So first thing to notice is the type knob in the chord mode. So what does it do? Basically, it gives you various chord presets that you can use and apply to the programmed chord. So the first one is the user one. And if we go higher, we have an octave chord, which basically breaks up the chord and sets it across the 3 octaves of the root note. And then we have fifth. Another one is suspended. And you might want to ask, what happens if I trigger 2 notes at the same time in the chord mode? So basically there is a note priority system that is applied, which determines the playback order of the notes, and obviously the first note that is played back when you trigger 2 notes at the same time is the one that you trigger first. Okay, moving forward, we have also minor chords, minor and major chords. So 7th, major 7th, 9th, 11th, and the same for major. So basically 11 chord types that you can use to go beyond the chords that you have programmed. But that's not everything. Obviously, this chord mode has much more to offer. So the next knob has a name called notes, which basically determines the amount of notes that are added to the programmed chord. So let's maybe pick the, I don't know, 5th. So my chord had just 3 notes. But I can extend that and go even up to 16 of those. So let's extend it to 8 now. So you can see how many notes are played back. I can go even further, 12. And even up to 16. I think my software only gives me 8 notes now. Yeah, poly 8, pigments changed to poly 16. So you can have up to 16 notes. So basically you can extend the amount of notes that are built into the chord that you have programmed. So to move beyond those functionalities, we have also added a very cool knob called velocity to notes, a functionality, should I say. And this basically determines the amount of notes that are played back based on the velocity of your playing. So if the knob is set to 0, all the currently selected notes will be played back at the same time. They will be played back without any influence, without the velocity of my playing. And if I increase it, let's set it to maximum just for the example. If I press the notes very slightly, in a very subtle way, now I only trigger 2 notes, for example. So that's pretty cool, and I have to tell you that this functionality makes you to play in a different sort of attitude, because you suddenly pay a lot of attention to how hard or soft you're hitting the notes. Without it, if you play in a normal mode, you usually play and don't focus that much on the velocity. But if we go to the chord mode, and now I know that the velocity produces such a difference in sound, I suddenly pay much more attention to it. Alright, so maybe we can set it to 80, and then the best functionality arises at the end of the description of the very cool chord mode. And this one is called strum. And what it does, basically, it does what it says, because it will deconstruct the chord and play the notes that are in the chord one by one, just like if you would be strumming. So I can either go negative or positive. So let's start from 0 and turn it slightly to the right. So that's just pretty cool. That's very nice. The velocity of my playing determines how many notes are played back, and then this is connected to the strumming. So I can strum like this, or like this. So the range is from 0 to and I can go to the negative values, which will play back the notes from the highest to the lowest. So what happens if I go beyond the range? Beyond the range, there are time divisions that are basically allowing you to sync those strums, sync the strumming to the master tempo or to the tempo of the external device. So here you have 60/4, 30 seconds, and all the modes applied, which means binary, triple, or dotted. You can go very slow. And you can also combine this with some effects controlling. That's very cool, very nice. So as you can hear and see, the chord mode is expanded. It goes beyond the usual chord mode and anything else that I have seen on MIDI controller and sequencer of that type. And the best thing is that you can combine the chord mode and the sequencer. So let's maybe program a sequence and then use the chord mode to manipulate it. So let's say it's gonna be alright, so sound like that. And now let's enter the chord mode. And now I'm manipulating the strum. So that's pretty cool. You can also apply those changes to the Arpeggiator. So let's try. So that's it, I think, mostly. We are getting close to the end. One last thing that I would like to talk about are the scales. So you can easily program your own scales and also pick some of the default ones. So to pick a scale, just press Shift and then, press a key that corresponds to a scale. So it's a chromatic, major, minor, blues, if you're into blues, and then the user one. So to make a user scale, simply press Shift, hold the user scale button, and then create your own type of scale, just like this. One last thing that is very important is the appending of the notes. So you can also append the notes, meaning that you can add additional notes at the end of the current sequence. So if I have a sequence like this, let's find a sequence. So we have a sequence like that, and now if I stop the sequencer and if I press Shift and record, I can add additional notes. I can just add additional notes like this. So that's how it works. You stop the sequencer, press append, press Shift and append, and then leave Shift and all right, so I guess that's it. Again, most of the features that are embedded here I managed to describe. So basically you have to remember that the Keystep 37 gives you a 64-step polyphonic sequencer with 8 notes per step, 8 sequence lanes to use on the hardware, and then more if you send them to MIDI control center. Various time divisions, rate knob that determines the tempo with the little nice display, arpeggiator that's built in, and a very cool advanced chord mode with the strumming feature that takes this little instrument to another level. So now I guess it's the time for a little Q&A. We are getting closer to the end, so Michael, if you can pass me the phone, please. I'll try to find those questions if there are any. Let's just find those. All right. Are there any questions? Can the sequencer be used with hardware and software at the same time? Specifically, can you program both drums and synth parts together? Well, you can obviously control both the hardware and software instruments with the same channel, just like I am doing on this sound. I have two instruments that are on one MIDI channel, and then when I program a sequence, I'm triggering both of those instruments. But it's not possible to sequence two different instruments at the same time. If you press record, you are already using the whole sequence track that is built in Keystep 37. But again, as I said, if you use the keyboard play and then if you change to a different MIDI channel, then you can have one instrument being sequenced and other one being controlled by your playing. So that's pretty cool for a little sequencer like that. Okay, another question. What's the name of the pigments preset you used? So the name is, let me check, I think it's Reverse Box. It's called Reverse Box, but as I said, I am also using a different polyphonic synthesizer on the same track. So let me just show you the pigment sound. It's much more chiller. With the other polyphonic synth, it sounds like this. So stacking is the way to go, but pigments gives you a lot of different sounds that you will be happy with. All right, another question. Can you all right, 1 second, another question. Okay, so does Keystep 37 support MIDI pass-through? So there is a whole, I didn't mention this, but there is a whole MIDI control center program where you can go and activate a lot of different functions. So the MIDI through is one of those, and obviously you can activate it and allow the MIDI outputs to be used as MIDI through as well. Inside you can also change, various CV settings that I haven't used here. You can change the CC numbers for those parameters. You can also change them from the main panel, but MIDI Control Center gives you a lot of different settings and variety of applications. Exactly, just as I have mentioned, another question. With the MIDI Control Center, can you change the gate trigger mode? So if you go to the CV gate settings area in the MIDI Control Center, you can change the gate CV output, and the options are S-trig, V-trig 5 volts, and V-trig 12 volts. So these are the options. Another question, 1 second, guys. It's so hard to navigate with the phone. Is it possible to use record, stop, play buttons as a transport controls for a DAW? If yes, can they do this independently from controlling the internal sequencer? Independently not, but they are available to use as the CC function messages, so you can map them with your DAW, and that depends on how your DAW is doing it. If in Ableton, if I press, you can't see it, but if I press Command and M and then I press play and then I press play on the Keystep 37 in Ableton, the play button is now controlling the play function in DAW, but it's not independent from the sequencer. Okay, another question. Can you directly control Analog Lab with the 4 knobs? Yes, you can, of course. I'm sure that if you plug I'm not sure whether you will immediately have some parameters mapped, but I think definitely, because there are some numbers that are used here, CC numbers, but you can obviously do it on your own in a very fast way. So that's possible. All right, that's it for the questions. I'm gonna leave you guys with a little bit of music, so bear with me for another 2 minutes, and I wish you a great afternoon and have a great evening. And again, Keystep 37 is a great device. Check it out. For all the details, go to our website. We also have a nice performance video and tutorial series on YouTube, so I recommend you to check it out. Thanks for watching and see you guys soon.